Hey guys, welcome back to the RKOX podcast. It is Wednesday, May.
Good question.
What day is it?
It's not May the 4th be with you. It is May the, 21st?
No way. Are you serious?
It's the 21st.
Wow.
I thought it was I feel like we deserved it.
I thought it was like the 17th or something.
That would be like the 12th at the word.
Right?
That would have been really helpful.
The 21st? You got to be kidding me. Is this a weird thing that's happening? Like time? Do you feel like it's weird lately? Time?
It either moves really fast or not at all.
Exactly. There is no normalcy to it.
No.
Anyways, so it is May 21st, 2025. And my wonderful co-host here has lots of exciting news to share with us.
I do. And there's always something across the board that's weird, but we're starting with this one right away.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. I'm starting out. This one just came out the day before. Australian engineers have created something straight out of sci-fi, a solid-state heat engine that runs entirely on light. No fuel, no moving parts, no emissions, just photons powering motion. This nano engine uses specifically designed materials that convert light directly into energy.
That's so crazy. Who's going to die for this?
Well, there's the thing. This one's I think it's been okay. I want to get into it because I think that's what some of the pyramids and some of the structures are.
Mm-hmm.
We keep looking at going, okay, we think of energy coming from lightning. We think of energy. We can't conceive of energy in a solid state form that doesn't come from an electrical current.
Sure.
We don't think of a solid state body as being the so. I'm gonna get into it. Sorry.
Can't help it.
I can't. So think mini machines that could run forever, satellites powered by sunlight, and nanobots driven by pure energy. So this isn't. So the point about is that it's converting light directly into mechanical energy, and it works even in the vacuum of space. So,
what does that? So what does that mean? What does that mean for like the future of energy? Let's just say, because right now, what you just read, that it's in nanotechnology, right? It's a nano machine, nano engine.
Which means, just think like our cell phones, there's solid state drives. There's no mechanical part. It's just electricity within it's witchcraft to all of us, right? So you just have a solid state film, and then there's literally an indent that's changing, representing a 1 or a 0. And so when we think 1 or a 0, we think a 1 or a 0. That's not what's happening. It's negative or positive. There's these actual physical mechanical things happening within a solid state drive. Mm-hmm. Yet there's nothing to our eye, nothing's changing. So whether it's the Giza plateau and one of the 3 pyramids left out of 7, because there was 7 up there when we found it all again in the 1700s.
So let's say the pyramids use light to create
directly on the surface
energy.
Uh-huh.
Okay, directly on the surface.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just saying. So basically, what you're telling me,
mm-hmm.
what you're sharing with us, is that the pyramids are taking light from the sun.
Yes.
Natural light from the sun.
Yeah.
And transmuting it into energy.
Yeah.
And then what?
So
what is it powering? What were the pyramids powering?
Ooh, you know what? So you and I we were just kind of looking at something about this yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing that every time. So when I started writing and I started thinking about all this stuff, like before that, so I bring up writing because it took me a couple of years, and I'm like, okay, I have to describe this to people, right? Uh-huh. And so then it forces you to think. I'm like, oh my gosh, my head's banging on a wall, trying to envision, because like that point about obelisks and like, okay, they're harmonic. You know, I watched Brian Forster bang on the edge of one, and they ring, even on the ground, they ring. So it's like, okay, what's the frequency obelisk in reference to the machines? So if the pyramids are creating energy, and the obelisks are moving, I'm trying to paint a picture that you can envision of the pyramids, the obelisks, and then you're like, okay, so the obelisk is putting energy into the ether, into the air. What's receiving it?
Mm-hmm.
And all we picture are temples, and all we picture are stone structures.
But so for those that are listening that don't know what an obelisk is, explain what that looks like.
So it's a big pointy needle that you can see in Paris.
But it's okay. Go ahead.
All made out of stone.
Mm-hmm. It's made out of stone. It's tall. It just looks like a tall tower, like a
pointy needle out of stone that has hieroglyphics on it. Sometimes I think those were added. I don't think. Well, I've had two thoughts on. Okay, this is a worthy digression. Well, it's important because
here we go down the rabbit hole. Hang on, guys. The ride begins now.
See, that's more like a challenge. Like we should be talking about some sort of like alien grays or the 140,000-year-old.
Oh, we'll get there.
Okay,
we're just getting started.
Okay, so good point. All right, cheers to that. So here's what I think. I think the pyramids and the structures that were left that were megalithic before the Egyptian dynastic Egyptians, or anyone from Sumerian time on that found the ruins and are like, we can do something with this. And they became the Egyptians that we know of. But I think what they came across was massive, catastrophically destroyed, cataclysmic megalithic ruins that were just obliterated.
Okay, so you're saying the Sumerians came along.
Well, so we know when we think oldest cultures in our Western history, we think Sumeria is the oldest, right? Right. And so then we're like, well, but the Egyptians had the old dynasty and they're creeping the times back. Everybody's creeping their times back. Like we know in Belize, the Mayans they've gone from maybe 2,000 to maybe 5,000 years old. So suddenly it's like, oh, wait.
We're a little bit older than we thought we were.
Yeah, and the Mayans were definitely around the same time. Oh, wait, they had more shit figured out.
Yeah.
So they were like hundreds of millions of them with metropolises everywhere. But then again, so were probably the Egyptians. But, I mean, for sure, Northern Africa was a tropical paradise 5,000, 8,000 years ago. 5,000 for sure. That's the flora and fauna in the sand says this was all tropical. And if you look at a satellite map, I've looked at a bunch, the amount of rivers, it looks like a spider web. It looks like they're just all these tributaries. There's so much water in North Africa. So like, what happened? And so there's that, right?
So what happened? Good.
So there's a layer of glass. So it's vitrified. So that happens to either stone or in this case, it was obviously a high heat, some sort of either weapon or a cosmic impact. It heated most of North Africa and literally created a layer of glass. It melted.
It rained glass, right? It basically rained glass.
It melted. It was so hot, it melted the desert. It melted the sand in the glass. So there's a glass layer across all of North Africa.
Generally. I feel like I just recently watched a video about somebody talking about raining glass.
Oh, like maybe Sodom and Gomorrah, maybe. Because so there's some theories about if it was one, they'll talk about it being a weaponized disaster. They'll talk about it in Ancient Aliens and much like that. Maybe there was a fight and it was something from an aerial, some sort of bombardment that created. But then again, there's this volcanic thing.
I think that's what it came from, was some kind of you know what? I'm gonna research that. I'm gonna hang on to this and put it in the toolbox for next Wednesday.
Yeah. So we the digression is that the dynastic Egyptians, they show up and there's all these ruins. And I think some of the hieroglyphs, what's pretty clear, some of them are really well machined. So some of the casing stones that are on the pyramid, they're left. In fact, when we go to Egypt in September, I only know this from
November.
In November. When we go
Same thing.
If this is a test, so if you want to take notes, we will be testing for later. I meant to do that.
Pop quiz class.
So apparently there are some rooms that are not frequented by a lot of people. So here's a tourist tip. You can get to some of the back rooms where some of the casing stones remain. The thing that's significant, and one, I think also why they don't make a big deal out of the casing stones, is that the hieroglyphs on the casing stones, which were on all the pyramids, not just the Great Pyramid, but on all the pyramids, these are highly machined hieroglyphics. They look definitely like they were put on a lathe and cut in. So this is definitely something that is not something you want to put in the front room. Like, hey, here's one of the original cover stones. It's like, who cut that in there? So what I wonder is whether or not the Egyptians made up their written language from hieroglyphs that already existed.
Ah.
So, yeah, what do you think of that?
Well, actually, when we're talking about a lathe, so my dad he's retired now, lathe machinist. So I've seen lathe machines, and they're enormous. They're enormous. They're huge, big, and bulky. The only ones that I've seen, I don't know. Maybe there are mini lathes. Is that a thing?
Yeah, well,
the only ones that I've seen are like the big lathes that cut like oil field, like parts for the oil field.
Have you ever seen the granite ones that cut with water?
No.
Water jets?
Oh, no. Yeah, I've seen those.
Water cut, and it's crazy. So they'll cut the granite, and then they still have to hand polish it with 12 layers. But
yeah,
I've seen the CNCs.
So that's what my dad was a CNC lathe machinist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. So was he using water ones too, or just the laser ones, or the heat ones,
water.
the plasma ones?
I think it was water.
Okay. Because
he was cutting like metal, steel, like gears and stuff, like metal gears, like big metal. I don't know, Dad, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I'm just butchering all of this. Well, I should know more about what you did.
The chances are he probably cut a lot of stuff that would have been a lot of lathes are used per order.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know how much still custom machining is done.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of parts for forklifts,
mm-hmm.
It's a lot cheaper. Not that I'm suggesting this, but you could just get the specs off of like a particular part that is like $5,000, $8,000 from the manufacturer, and you can have a highly skilled machinist reproduce exactly like, say, a particular say a forklift may have like a $3,500 kind of a brake pad sort of thing, kind of, but you can actually have it machined at a custom machine shop for like $1,000 instead of $5,000 or $3,500. You can get something done for $700. And so you have a perfect replacement part. So people don't realize exactly how Walmart-y or Target-y or machinists do a lot of really cool work for some really like high tech, low tech sort of replacement stuff. But why would you have these casing stones? They were probably put on in sections. So what would be crazy to think about is I look at it and go, okay, well, they put them on a lathe, they put it at a machine shop, they had a big table, it cuts everything on the table, and then that piece is done, and they put the piece on. Well, they're moving 3,000 ton stones or 1,000 tons at Baalbek, which is not too far away, and the same polygonal construction methods. The exterior of the pyramid has that same finishes, right? So the same people are producing the same work, which means their capability of producing a machine finished hieroglyph, which could have a heat, energy component and memory component, which all those layers could be working together. So there's this idea of inside the Christopher Dunn, the idea that the Giza power plant, that there's like power being generated from the inside. But again, if they figured out solid state technology, if they're doing geopolymers, and what we're talking about in our future, not too far away documentary, is you have engineered soils, frequency and energy, pre-compacted soils under building that are also nanotechnology. So the material holding up the 1,000 ton stones are not just packed tight stuff. Or they say, hey, the Great Pyramid is actually like a plug. They say that the way they describe it is that the entire pyramid, they carved out of bedrock. They carved out a base. And so if you would lift it up the pyramid, you would see that it has this like rectangular base, and it plugs into this set area, right? I don't think so. I think they pre-compacted or did at Baalbek. I don't think they were cutting out of a quarry. I think they poured the entire base of the pyramid in.
Really? You think that? Okay, so last week I was thinking about these. I'm I'm like really happy that you said that, because last week and we talked about this. I was thinking about some of these ruins being geopolymers, and I was thinking, like, we talk about where there's all this debate and conspiracy over how a lot of these megalithic stones were moved. Yeah. And do you remember we were driving down the road, and I was like, well, what if they were poured?
Yeah.
So the fact that you're just now telling me that you sort of maybe think that they were poured, I'm like, oh.
Because either they were poured, or at first I was thinking a little more primitive. Like, again, I got 30 years in construction. I'm thinking, okay, well, you pour a wall for a house.
Yeah.
Well, you dig out 4 to 8 feet for a basement. But then the first thing you do, no matter what the ground is, you pre-compact that layer.
Right.
So you're not taking it out. It's just like if it's clay, if it's mud, if it's sand, whatever. You're going to add sand. You're going to add rock. You're going to add those things, and then you're going to compact that. So when I think about the base of the pyramid, and you think, or in South America, they say, oh, they built it on bedrock. And it's like the requirement currently to code over 30 years ago for an American build home, the requirement was a 90% compaction. So it's almost solid. How hard would it be for people who cut and work with geopolymers on a frequency energy level and move at 1,000 tons? How hard would it be for them to pre-compact? This is my primitive brain thinking, by the way. I'm saying that in the sense of I had just a very basic idea, which is, okay, so they had machines and they could pre-compact to 100%. So the bedrock isn't really bedrock. They just pre-compacted it till it was solid. They smashed it solid. And then I'm thinking, hold on a minute. Then it took me a while to go, wait a minute. They're not pre-compacting what's there. They're choosing what the composition is. Then they're either pouring it as that composition, or they're bringing it in. I was thinking they may not even need to pre-mix it. They might be able to excite the material and make it.
You think using like what, sound?
Yeah.
Using sound.
Everyone thinks, oh, they use sound to lift heavy things. It's like, yeah, but what if they had, okay, so there's moisture and everything. A lot of people don't know this. Like in a nail, in your clothes, there's actually moisture, not just in your skin, but there's moisture in, metal, whatever. There's actually water and everything. So how hard would it be? Oh man, I don't want to digress too far. So here's the deal. I want people to be able to conceive of it. Okay, so here's the deal. Assuming that, hey Rex, hello Rex.
Hey Rex.
We will talk to you tomorrow, I think. We're going to talk to Rex.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do a show with him. Just, I don't remember when.
Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Or Thursday. What's today, Wednesday?
I don't know, but what were you saying?
Okay, so Royal Rife machines have just come up recently for a friend of ours that has a family member with cancer. And the idea was Dr. Anthony Holland came up with a TED Talk. Everyone can look it up on YouTube. In 2008, he's like, he bought Royal Rife's work from the 30s using plasma waves. They used it to carry in other frequencies to kill cancer, MRSA, bacterias, leukemia, breast cancer.
He's the one that did the TED Talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
That guy. Well, what if they were using like a plasma, like that high of an energy wave to not just kill cancer? What if they were using it to deliver water? What if they just mixed the whole powder?
Can we go back to that though? Can we just note this and then come back to sound killing cancer part, and then we'll come back to it. Let's just remember to come back to
cancer later.
Cancer later.
With sound. But I think they may have been mixing what they want, nanoparticles, machine technology, solid state power and or memory systems. They mix the whole thing. They put what's going to look like a plug for this pyramid energy thing. And what they did was, instead of even bothering to primitively mix concrete, I think they just set it in forms the way they wanted it to be and just hit the button. The energy wave just goes through it and it solidifies instantly because it delivers the right amount of water.
Yeah.
And you already have the mix that you want. You don't have to actually pour it. You can just what do you think?
I mean, it makes sense to me. But also, I'm new.
I know, but it's like this is why we want to do this documentary together, to pull it all together, because there's always this piece. It's like, well, aliens built it. And they're like, this is why aliens could have built it. And it's like, okay, but there's millions of years of human history. More importantly, there's clear technology across the planet. And in either there was a really, like, what was it? Like 100,000 visiting aliens who were like, we're the Peace Corps of the universe. And we're like, these monkeys need help.
Have you seen,
Planet of the Apes
And this is
7.
dumpster fire. Welcome to the dumpster fire, the Earth dumpster fire.
Of philosophy.
Have you seen the new, and I know you probably haven't, but there's all of the, because,
I'm super lowbrow.
I know you don't do any like social media things other than Facebook, and that's so antiquated.
Hey, everybody, we're on Facebook Live right now, by the way.
Wonderful.
Thank you, all 300 something plus friends. Wait till we're 300,000.
Oh my God.
We used to be at 15. You're welcome.
You're ridiculous.
Facebook.
Go look at our new Facebook page.
When we invented Facebook.
We're so antiquated.
Let's do the TikTok. All right.
Anyways, so what I'm seeing that you likely aren't on social media.
Okay, on real media.
Yeah. So apparently the Pentagon, I don't even know if it's the Pentagon. I don't know, guys.
It feels like a TikTok disclaimer.
It is this is a, guys, I don't know. Rex, confirm this if you've heard. Listen.
Rex would know.
The Anunnaki are coming back in like 3 weeks.
Really? Did you just say that? Live?
I can't.
Rex.
I can't. Okay, look.
Seriously, is that what they think?
Yeah. So
okay, tell me more.
That's all I know. Is apparently there are people at the Pentagon that are saying the Anunnaki are going to come back in like 3 weeks. And here's, why? What were they, who, why, and where, and how, and what, and how, and why? And was gold actually what they were here for? Were they actually here? Are the Anunnaki real? What are your thoughts?
Ooh, so many questions, so many that can be answered quickly.
First of all, yes or no? Are the Anunnaki real?
I think.
Oh, no, just rapid fire. Yes or no?
Probably yes.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoever the Sumerians were, whoever the Anunnaki were that they identified, either they saw them or they mystified and they deified and they created a story around something that somebody saw once. Or somebody saw.
Oh, you think that the Anunnaki were only seen once?
I'm saying that they're real. Like I'm saying that most of the current dynastic people who have a god, whether it's Anubis or whatever, or it's Vircoche in South America or Central America, or whether it's something in the East, it's likely that the gods, the Vimana, the spacecraft of the Hindus of Hinduism, the reality is that somebody saw what I think in reality was a spacecraft or a high flight, a high technology thing. Or dragons fascinated me. I'm like, it hit me one day, and I was young. I was like, I must have been a teenager because I was fascinated, like every boy, of dinosaurs. Who doesn't like dinosaurs, right? So one day it hit me. There's no way they imagined dragons unless somebody could have had a consciousness download and just had a download of a time that we biohacked our way into having actual dragons, maybe. Or I think that somebody at some point more practically saw dragons, saw not dragons, but saw dinosaurs and mistook it, and or it the mythology of it turned into a dragon. But the reality is that I think we absolutely, well, look, we have 120 million year old Rockefeller Institute studying, stitched boot print in the ground, 120 million years old. That was way pre-woolly mammoth. Well, no, that is dinosaur time.
Okay, so then let's talk about that for a second, because I recently had a family member over the weekend tell me that I was wasting my time.
Oh, are we going here?
We are. We're going to do it.
Okay, sure?
We're going to do it. And the reason is because I feel like this is important. I feel like it's important because, one, you can't go around telling people that believe in something and that are searching for truth that they're wasting their time.
Okay.
We can't do that. That's rude. And
take that.
Yeah. And two, if we're not searching for meaning in this life,
okay,
then what are we doing? If we're not searching for meaning, then what are we just waking up every day and going through the motions of life to survive? Because that's basically what it is. It's like or we're just getting up and playing tennis or golf.
Yeah.
Like what are we spending our time doing? Is it worthwhile? Is it meaningful? Are we making a difference? Like, what are we doing here? And when the whole point of the conversation was that basically was what we're doing here, but also the understanding, the seeking of knowledge and understanding, like if commonly accepted wisdom is, humans have been on the planet for 300 years, but we are now analyzing, stitching from boot prints 120 million years old. Okay, well, that's telling a different story. And so at what point do we take a step back and start questioning, what we have been told, what we've been taught, what we're believing, and start asking bigger questions and actually be open to the answers? It's one thing to question and to wonder, but to accept the evidence as truth, that's, sometimes it's harder to do. But I think that seeking is important. And I think that looking to understand is important. So how can you explain that? How do you explain when it is commonly accepted, understanding of human history is that we've been on the planet for 300,000 years. Now we're analyzing boot prints that are 120 million years old. How do you explain that? How do you explain that to you? Because this is what I'm finding is getting harder and harder. The deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole I fall. Not that I'm intentionally climbing down the hole, but I'm intentionally climbing down the hole. The further down I get, the harder I realize it's becoming to deliver a message that's like an all-encompassing theme. You know what I mean? When you get in the holes of life, when you get in the holes of reality, you realize that there's all of these disconnected things, like we were talking about doing in the documentary, connecting the dots, right?
Yeah.
So there's all of these disconnected things. We've got all of these disconnected parts of life: sound, water, nature, trees, plant medicine. What else do we have? We've got lifestyle, food. We've got ancient human history. We've got all consciousness. We've got all of these different elements of existence that are seemingly disconnected, but really are all wrapped in one, right?
Yes.
It's just all one thing.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to figure out how to connect all of these things.
I think that's accurate.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we unpack it when we've been taught, we've been told, we've been conditioned and programmed to believe a certain way, a certain thing, history happened this way, and then we are uncovering all of these things and pulling things out of the ground that are telling a different story, right? So the story is different, the narrative is changing, but belief systems aren't. But for people who see the change, people who see the transition, people who are awake to it and are aware of what's going on, how do you then and move with it? That's the thing. You not only see it, but you move with it. When you move with the I don't know how to describe it, the awakening.
Okay.
So let's say you are with it, you're moving with the awakening, right? We'll call it the awakening program. The Awakening Project, whatever, the Leak Project, but the Awakening Project.
That's you, Rex.
So we've got this Awakening Project happening, and some of us are members of it, right? But for those that aren't, when these members, like family members, for example, when they come to you and they ask you what you're doing with your life, you know what I mean? Or what you're thinking, or what, especially when it's a traditional family. If it's a traditional, you know what I mean?
Just said.
Okay. How do you present it? Because I just realized this weekend that I do not know how to present this information in a format that is easily digestible to the everyday person. I don't know how to say, well,
fill in the blank.
How do you say it? Humans have been around for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And we were actually really advanced and very connected. actually much more advanced than I think that we are now.
Yeah.
And how do you explain that when your family thinks that we have all evolved from rock banging cave people?
Well, if they believe that, a lot of people just believe that there's a short answer that says the Earth is, we've been here 10,000 years, and anything else is the devil. That just kind of narrows down about who thinks that. But the point is, there is very much still, there are people who can look deadpan at you and think and tell you that the Earth is 10,000 years old and dinosaur bones were put here by the devil to test your faith.
I can't.
That's actually a thing. I've heard that, by the way, from multiple different. So I was raised, the one thing I truly love about being raised Catholic, and a lot of people who, if you're not Christian, some people may not know this, but this is actually important. If you ever wanted to understand the Christian mindset, you have to start with the fact that St. Peter, that the Romans decide to pick up a corporate religion. They make the first corporate religion, right? So we have Catholicism. From Catholicism, a lot of people don't understand is that this is go into a cathedral, anybody go into a basilica, and you really get an idea of what that is. And then
it's very corporate. It's this whole, what you're talking about right now. It's corporate religion.
Yeah.
It's a very corporate religion starting a really long time ago for the purposes of control and power. But
so
go
to
ahead.
Confuse the matter further, then all these evangelical Baptists, all these different Church of Science, there's all these different Unitarianism, Methodists, and whatever, and Lutherans. There's all these different methods that came from Catholicism, and what happened is that it blurred the lines, and that people are like, oh, well, Catholicism is religion. It's not connecting to a personal relationship with your deity, with your God. And then these other religions, which are Christian, said, oh no, we have a personal relationship. And so what confuses the matter further is that people relate. What I wanted to point out is that when you have people who are now maybe disassociating or open to a larger worldview, the problem is that they're still relating to what they see. Everyone has a family of origin. I was raised Catholic, but what it did was it allowed me to see there's some mechanics to it that you can really see how it then disseminated to well, I'm not it's like in high school, it's like there's the preppy kids and the goth kids and whatever else. It's like, well, I'm being goth because I'm being the opposite of that. And it's like, when you start as Catholic foundationally, you can look at some of these other experiences and you can immediately see how they're not the not. They're just doing the not thing. But it's like, you could see it more clearly because it's so rigid and so corporate. And it's so, but the other ones are too. But when you then hear of Anunnaki, and when you then hear of ancient antiquity, if you have zero, how do you talk to someone with zero exposure to any of it? Then there's the people who are open to it, who maybe even done a little bit of the work, but they're still relating to it from
a religious point of view,
or they've chosen to divorce that religious view. So they're not doing it from that view, but they're 100% viewing it as the opposite of what they knew. They're not relating to it fresh or on their own. They're relating to it not that. And which is also still, I think, difficult then to see the whole, how do you not see the whole picture, right?
Yeah.
So we have the Anunnaki. We still have the Egyptian hieroglyphs that we're going to go back to, and the power plant. And we've also now, how do we talk to people who don't know any of it? And I think
and that to me is the struggle, though.
Right, which I was going to say, you asked, how do we talk to them?
Because that's the seeds I feel like we need to be planting. It's, coming from a Christian background, that's the goal, right? I've done mission work, and so that's the goal, is planting seeds. Well, now the goal has changed slightly for me, where I'm not planting religious seeds, but spiritual seeds. And it's not about bridging a gap, because there's actually not a gap.
Right.
So it's not about bridging the gap, because it's an imaginary gap. It's more about an understanding, a solid understanding of reality is the seed planting, I feel like, at this point. So when we're talking to people who are very devout in their single belief system, and they're very close-minded, it's like, you don't just want to walk away or give up on it, but at some point it's like, this weekend I realized like this is pointless. There is no, I am fighting a battle that one, it's not the right time or place to do it. And two, I wasn't in it just wasn't a place to do it. But when you're looking at these people and these people are asking you these questions and they have no exposure to, like you said, human antiquity or, consciousness or the idea, like, quantum physics, and that's what I was trying to explain is what happened for me personally when I started looking at dying, like what happens when you die. And then that, well, we don't physically go anywhere. It's all mental. Okay, well, if it's mental, then that's, excuse the kindergarten term, but it's see-through. You know what I mean? There's no physicality there. It's if it's mental and there's nothing physical there, then what do you grab onto? What's moving? Where is it going? And so when you start breaking it down, you jump in the rabbit hole of quantum physics. And so but it's years, this is years of research and reading and learning and understanding and comprehension. And
you gotta back up. Where do you start with somebody who's completely closed-minded, right?
What do you do? How do you do it? How do you deliver it?
Well, here's an easy one. You could really just bring the hammer down and go with, well, the Rockefeller Institute was studying a 120-year-old Millian boot print, and you can see what the reaction is as far as like the antiquity of it. And they're like, well, the short answer for the people who believe in creation, specifically the Christian creation, they're going to argue that it doesn't matter if the earth is 4 billion years old, that Adam and Eve came. And so, yeah, the time frame is longer, which there's a book, which I used to, when I was trying to figure all this out coming out of Catholicism, one of the books that came out quite a while ago was super rage famous for a while. It was called The Science of God. And have you heard of it?
I have.
Okay, yeah. So for anyone,
I haven't read it, but I have heard of it.
Well, so I've whatever. I've skimmed through it a bit, but the whole idea is they take quantum mechanics, they take string theory, and the argument that, and I've seen the author. Actually, I also watch him lecture on this live, and it's cool because he visually explains string theory, that you're taking a short amount of time, 7 days, 7 nights. The idea of the creation of the world. Could it have been done in 7 days and 7 nights? What is time to God, right? And the whole book is to break down quantum mechanics to explain how a day could easily be, in your perception, a day, but in reality could be, based on string theory, millions, billions, or however long you want it. So whether the allegory is 7 days and 7 nights, and it really wasn't to us, it was to God, or to God it could have been, explaining the time frame, right? So you could get some really smart people who have read all the atheist to, maybe belief system conversions, the atheistic Christian conversions, or you could actually, and then there is science like that could justify that explanation and say, well, no matter what, Adam and Eve came first. Genetically, and again, this is a whole conversation about that, but it's like, again, genetically, we know what happens when relatives marry each other. It's a reason it's illegal. We don't, so if you were to marry your sister and a brother, yeah. Anyway, so how do you start? Where do you start with people? So you could say, hey, there's this blueprint, and they could kind of explain it away and say, well, science of God, and also the devil sent it to test us. And then you're like, okay, possible. Okay, sure. So the most practical explanation right now is, where would I start? Well, there are, from our LiDAR work, there's a lot more ruins around the world, right? So the populations of the world were a lot bigger, but it doesn't change the timeline. I think maybe, this is what I think I'd do, depending on the individual within the dialogue. I think you'd have to start with an area maybe they're open to. So some of them might be more interested in the history. Some of them might be more interested in science. So, and by science, they may like a lathe or something, or like not referring to like a machinist or something, but what if they were more interested in they found tubes in Egypt. Flinders Petrie did, the father of the accredited Victorian father of Egyptian archaeology, found these cylinder tubes that had spin marks that showed they were revolving 22,000 times faster than modern lathes. So they were core cutouts. And were those cutouts for adding in wiring? Like, we don't know what was in the tubes where they were cutting out, but they weren't making, by the way, this wasn't like they had a really long bore bit and they made a 10-foot. Some of these are like forever long, 20, 30, 50, hundreds of feet. Like, we don't even know where they go. And it's like, somebody cut that out. They actually made it perfectly. And so the bits that were pulled out, they're found all over the earth, right? So you could talk to someone about the science, the machining science around that. Like, if somebody was into just understood things technically, it's like, hey, why are there, 20,000 times faster cores everywhere, or cuts in stone? That's one aspect of it, right? But then, what about the geopolymers? So you're finding geopolymers where there's not supposed to be geopolymers. So the Egyptian pyramid. So you have like concrete technology. It's like, well, they just do it. Okay. So I guess I could hear someone arguing, well, they could just pour concrete. There is that cut in our DNA that was talked about a lot by 1990. So you could say, well, there's this cut in our DNA, and I guess they could.
But so like, there's all of these things. There's all of these physical evidences, right?
You can see all the arguments against it.
Yeah, we can see, like, we could literally sit down and we could list off, all of these. We could open a Cremo book.
Yeah, we could just list all the finds.
And we could just list all the Cremo, everything that Michael Cremo shares. But, at the end of the day, what it boils down to is I don't want to say more than that, but I want to say bigger than that. It's bigger than that.
The consciousness side of it?
Yeah. It's that part of it. For somebody who's not in this I don't know, arena. We'll call it an arena. Yeah. For somebody who's not in the arena, it's just explaining. I don't know how to say this, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to just do it like this.
Just do it.
All of us have people in our life that are very set in their ways with, maybe a mildly narrow worldview, and they refuse to open their minds to other possibilities, regardless of the evidence. So I think there has to be a way to reach people that relates to consciousness. But I don't know how to do that, because what I'm seeing is it's like you can put facts in front of people all day long and they'll still debate it. I actually had a historian one time. I say a historian, master's in history. We'll just call it that.
Okay.
She's brilliant though. But she actually said to me one time that when I was questioning, because her theory was,
Can't wait.
The Earth is 6,000 years old.
They said that?
Mm.
They understand that there's geologists, right?
Exactly.
Well, explain 6,000. Can I just ask, why did they say 6,000?
Well, it's a long story.
Oh, boy. Really?
6,000 years old. And the reason why we find, we can carbon, because that was my thing, was, well, what about carbon dating?
Okay.
I mean, we can date all of these finds. So how do we argue with that? And it was skewed testing, basically. Skewed testing. So I'm thinking, and this is a highly intelligent woman. Highly intelligent
in the one thing,
and I'm thinking, like, how far off are we, in the one thing? And this is another point I'd like to prove. We all think these degreed people. I have a master's. That doesn't mean I know shit. You know what I mean? That means I'm a good test taker.
Yeah.
Basically, you have a degree, you're a really good test taker. I mean, you need to understand the material for the most part, but like, if you're really good at memorizing and taking tests, you can make it through any curriculum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So basically, just because somebody knows a lot, or just because somebody has credentials or is degreed in some way, that doesn't mean that they're intelligent.
Good
Because
test history.
think about historians. Think about it. Everything that they've, not everything. I don't want to say everything. That's all encompassing. It's very definite. It's all false history.
Well, or what it is they
Skewed
have
history.
They just have pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and the skewed part is the part where they've interjected their own story and interpretation. They call it fact, when in reality it's an interpretation and a story, which they've used to fill in what they don't know. And then they'll say that this is, they'll speak about it as if it's a fact, or like Cremo will point out, it's knowledge filtration.
It's also the same with religion. Religion is the same way. They do the same thing with religion.
They're selective.
They just fill in the hole. They fill in the gaps with what they think, not actual facts.
Well, the favorite part is one, stop asking questions when you've gone too far,
Mm-hmm.
or have faith. So I think you're on track for knowing that you're on the right track when you are either to stop asking questions, or you're supposed to just have faith.
As soon as you get your hand slapped, that means dig more.
Yeah.
As soon as you get your hand slapped, ask more.
That's not a goal to go out and do. Don't go out and get your hand slapped. That's not what you should do.
No, absolutely not. But so back to, like, how do you share this? And we want to reach a level of consciousness. So maybe we can throw things out that, that Cremo's presented, and we can say, well, the Rockefeller Institute is investigating a, stitching from a boot that's 120 million years old. And we can say things like that, right? We can put that out there, and we can say things like that. But we want to reach people on a consciousness level so that they can, so that we understand that it's not just about, it's not, your religion isn't better than mine. Okay.
Well, there's
can we just boil it down to that? Like, your religion isn't better than mine. Just because you believe this and I believe this doesn't make us wrong. Maybe there's pieces of truth in all of this, in all of the text.
So what's the higher, the question then is, what is the higher truth? How is it that all the religions have pieces? The majority of the planet is either Hindus or some other religion. They're not Western, they're not Christian, and there's still non-Christians, and there's other things here, but the majority of the world believes in other systems. But whatever your belief system is, there's pieces that seem to be true in all of them. So somehow there must be some interconnected foundation of something that is true. And so they all have their pieces of it. But I think individually, if you're going to speak to someone, I think it's going to be a case-by-case individual decision as to what seed do you plant. And one of their, in the world of the Christian view, is, hey, live by example, right? So part of it is you could be happy and you can be in a great mood and you could be a great person, and it kind of reverse ministry in the sense that maybe it's not attacking. They might feel like it's an attack. You might just say something like, it's 120. We could hit them with all the facts, right? 120 million footprint, millions of years of humans, advanced stuff in the past. Like if you're technical, get into the engineering of these things, and it just shows that we were more advanced, and that, there's, 60 million year old human stuff being found at Table Mountain in California. And then there's whatever's under the ocean. So you could plant seeds of doubt and, or give them some ideas of being curious. You could just say those things we talked about. But I do think that there's like you said, the consciousness side of it. It's like, what they might not have any interest in true origin, maybe just planting a seed of an interest in consciousness or dreams, astral projection. Ask them if they've ever had weird dreams, or if that's the other thing. Instead of you giving them random facts, asking them, have you ever dreamt you were somewhere, or have you ever dreamt you were flying?
But then you have to explain that. Then you have to explain how that relates to anything else.
See, there's the thing. You don't. I think maybe if they say, you meet someone and says, I dreamt I was in this place, and then I actually drove by that place and I had no idea where it was, but I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly where this room was. I know exactly what was in this place. Like they don't know that they were astral projecting, right? But they maybe have a follow-up story, but like, if you ever had a dream that turned out to be real or whatever, you could just say to them, that's actually astral projection, which is part of consciousness. You should look into it. So instead of telling them anything, you just say,
plant the seed.
That's it.
Just plant the seed.
Tell them to look into it. Because if they are that If the minute they start defending or getting adamant about their system being true, you've already lost them. They're already like not listening. I think we talked about this the other week. I met a gal who couldn't wait to be dead. She couldn't wait. She literally said, "I hope I don't live past 60." And she was dead serious. And her sister and her niece were like, could not believe it. They were like,
"That's crazy."
They're like, "Holy!" Like I could see they didn't say anything to her, but the shock on their face, they were shocked, and they couldn't believe it. Like this woman's gonna be dead. I couldn't tell exactly how old she was, but maybe like 4 to 6.5 years. She didn't have that long left. Based on her manifestation, she was like, and it's kind of like,
But that's also really sad though, because then you have to ask like, why, like, why does that person think that way? Or, like what, I kind of have compassion or a little bit of
like
sympathy for that person.
What went wrong with them?
Well, yeah. Or just like, what is that person experience, or what has that life experience been like for that person to feel like 60's their max? Like I hit 60 and I'm good. I've lived enough. Like I'm solid. I can transition out and I'm good. No, I am thinking currently my next new hobby that I want to take up is jumping out of airplanes. So I'm just thinking like, I hope that when I'm 60, I'm still jumping out of airplanes.
Right. So I think part of maybe the idea of engaging people to be more interested.
Sad.
Yeah. But maybe the way to
do you feel like that's happening?
People are shutting down?
Do you feel like the humanity, just in general, do you feel like there's a subgroup of the population that maybe is checking out? They're just like, I'm sort of resolved to be over this life.
Whether they're consciously doing it or whether they're being programmed to do it, or the circumstances are such that they're going into sleep mode, not just safe mode, they're actually going into sleep mode themselves.
Yeah.
Because you can only do so many, I hate to say the word 3D, but you can only do so many activities until you're bored, because that's not how we're activated. That's not maybe that's another seed to plant, which is, have you ever wondered where we come from? And that sounds like an obvious question, right? Like, where did we come from? It's not an obvious question to someone who is declaring their religion, not their spirituality. If they're declaring their religion is their source of all knowledge, but they personally still have the question, do you wonder where you're from, and do you wonder why we're here?
Yeah.
If you have that question, I think the answers are not just in our past, but I think they're programmed in us. And then you could say, hey, why don't you check out this episode of Ancient Aliens?
Well, and also I think you just
no endorsements.
Yeah, we don't get anything from that. You just nailed it. You talking about I think that if we focus a little bit more on ourselves, and less on the outer experience, but more on the inner experience, I think that we're going to get a lot more fulfillment and a lot more understanding, instead of grasping at, like we're trying to understand, because this is what it's so far in my journey of seeking.
Yeah.
Coming from a religious background and from a Christian background, you naturally, when you're trying to figure things out about life and where you come from, you seek God, right? That's from a religious background. That's the natural thing to do.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do, but
that's what you do. Well, I mean, that's what a lot of people do. That's what I tried to do. But
I find it in the religion.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. That's where you seek,
okay.
Right? That's where you start anyways. So that's where I started. And this is what I found is when I would seek God, I would find myself. And when I would seek myself, I would find God. The two are synonymous. They're interchangeable. It's the same. So the more I would try to understand about God, the more it seemed I would understand myself. And so the two were, and when I would try to understand myself a little bit more, it seemed like it would point to God. And so I found myself going back and forth between the two, having a better understanding between the two the more I dug into both.
Okay.
But it wasn't scripture.
Right.
It was meditation.
Mm-hmm.
It was sitting with myself and going inside that made me feel the most connected. Right. So what does that mean, do you think?
For you personally or for people in general?
For just people in general.
I think that the difference between answering a material question, like I'm afraid of not having money or I'm afraid of dying, which is gray area for material or like a higher question. But I think that like we're not going to be able to pay our bills, or we're going to, I don't want to get a flat tire, or I don't want to be, I think there's some very mechanical questions that get addictively quickly put in the lap of a leader in a spiritual way, when in reality it's just a very, input output question, but they've mystified it.
Yeah.
They're looking for an answer, and this is where the difference between spirituality and religion. So they take a very, very religious, not religious, but they take a very mechanical question, they put it before religion, they get an answer. Then there's that spiritual level where you're like, wait, know thyself, and like the idea of I can connect with God, or I am God, and God is connected to me, and you get more of this spiritual level up where it's like, oh, we're all connected, and you start to understand that. And I think, okay, I'm saying this hypothetically, so someone starts to understand that it's maybe this deeper feeling to the idea, not the answer, but the idea of an answer, the idea of the question, which is, hey, what the question that comes from knowing that you're godlike, that you're connected to God, and God's connected to you, and that you're part of God. And so when I say godlike, I mean you're connected because you're a godly creation. So you start to spiritually comprehend that. And then you're like, well, wait, it's not about money or passing a test or getting a good job. And so on a level, that's true about that, but it's still not entirely, that sensation is not connected to, I think we're all connected. What's the meaning of the world? What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of, like, who am I and all of it and everything? And when you have those questions and they're not being answered by your religion of choice, I think in planting seeds and in exploring all of it yourself, you have to be willing to go outside of your current, whatever your belief system is, it doesn't matter. You need to be willing to not just, it's not, you can look at another belief system, but you have to start listening to your gut.
That's it. So I was hoping that's where you were going with it. So I think that is where we start. I think that's the key, because that's what I felt doing mission work in Honduras. There were parts of the trip that just did not resonate. It just felt like I was almost like holding things hostage, and I didn't like that feeling. And so so there have been things throughout my religious experience that have not resonated with me, and you just ignore it, But so I consider myself lucky because I was not raised in church. And so I was not programmed. I didn't have any sort of religious programming or scripture or doctrine, like, just banged into my head. And so I was able to, I've been able as an adult to make my own decisions. And so I married into religion and spent years in the church, was a mission leader and a youth leader, and did the things and walked the walk and stepped in the faith and talked the talk and read the scripture and did all the stuff. And when I started doing mission work, things didn't resonate as well with me because I was out in third world countries doing this mission work, but I was carrying like bags of beans and rice through this village. And it's just like, we're going and we're spreading, we're sharing the gospel, and which is a beautiful message, but we're sharing this message with a culture who doesn't speak our language. So we're using a translator. So there's obviously meaning lost in translation while this is happening. It seemed very transactional. We're sharing this message. Here's your beans and rice. Now we're on our way. Where's the integration after? Where is the church building after? Where is the follow-up after? We're going and we're sharing this message, and it just seemed very like, this is a huge message to deliver. We're delivering it in another language. We know that things are being lost in translation. And then we're expecting these people to just all of the sudden, they've got these missionaries at their door and they need to believe this one way. And we've got food. Of course, they're going to say, yes, I accept Jesus Christ.
Not going to say no.
Why would they say no? Why would they ever do that? Why would they do that? That makes no sense. They're not going to say no. They're going to say yes. Mm-hmm. And so then you walk away and you're questioning, was that authentic? You're walking away and your sole purpose there as a missionary is to save souls, right? To the kingdom. And then you get down there and you're doing this and then you're walking away with questions in your mind. Like, was that authentic? Did they really, was that it?
You made me think of something that is exactly the experience, I think, or I've heard that multiple times. I think you just described a good majority of situations that are not, I don't want to say all of them, but it's kind of probably most of them.
That's an entire belief system that you're just sitting on somebody's, wooden front porch or a dirt floor, you never know, and you're delivering this really important, heavy message that when you're a Christian is the eternity of your soul, the most important thing. And here we are with beans and rice doing this transactional thing, sharing this in another language, expecting them to comprehend, and then walking away with and it's just like, do they really understand?
Well, so it's difficult for me. I've been in a number of places in the East and in Africa, and what I've seen for the most part is, like you said, it's a very, very, very difficult subject to, people who are literally starving, and they're going to sit and listen to anything to get to feed their family. And we're not talking in a week, we're not talking a month, we're talking today. So they're going to listen for whatever. It's not going to cost them anything. They have no work, they have nothing else. They can sit around if it means they're going to be fed for a day or two, whatever. So there's that. There's some super obvious and inobvious like barriers to saying, hey, are people really going to learn what you're teaching? But part of the heart of what's going on and what you had suggested, or you're like trying to muse on, is how do you get through to people who are like just have a mindset, or there's these people like I just mentioned that are like ready. I'm ready to go. I've done whatever I can do, and it's like whatever. And it's like, okay, maybe the follow-up question isn't anything really complicated about something new for them to consider. Maybe the seed starts with, well, maybe you feel the way you do because you haven't explored another system, or
maybe they're drowning in the system that they're living in and they just don't, maybe they've not been introduced to other systems.
Yeah, I agree. So they one, it's like, hey, have you ever looked into, it sounds like you're kind of done with where you're at, or you're done with you sound like you're fulfilled with what you know so far, but like, I don't have any other questions. It's like, okay, but there's billions of people, and again, you don't have to jump off a bridge because everyone else is, but there's billions of people who believe very, very different things than you. So have you ever explored any of it? It could be that simple. Not giving them like literally a no barred, like, hey, it's got to be one of these other things. And they're like, oh crap, it might be one of those things. It's like, you want to give them some of the big info, or like nano gold machine parts found in 220,000 layers of year-old, in the Ural Mountains. You want to give them stuff like that and show them the complexity of it.
Yeah.
Or advanced pure aluminum in Europe that is under mastodon bones that are 40,000 years old. And it's like, how is there, this is 700 years before they even conceived of aluminum, and it looks like a highly machined part. And it's like, how do you want to explain that? So you could keep giving them all the examples, or you could just start with the fact that if they're already bored, it's like, well, you have mental space and time. So have you ever considered
going somewhere or doing something else?
That's an option. It's like you could. So there are people who go on cruises.
Yeah, but had you not had that conversation with those people that day, you would never know that woman was experiencing that.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a way to deliver a message to all of those people, just like we're trying to plant seeds in humanity in general.
Well, you could say that, you're here to help other people. You're not here for yourself. You're actually here to help.
Well, but can we talk about that for a second too?
Yeah.
Because
we got one news story in. We're good.
Because here's what I think.
Yeah.
Who is this? I can't see that far.
Retro Roman. Hi.
I can't see that far.
So I can't see that far. Sorry, guys.
So what were we saying? Where was I at?
You were talking about like belief systems, and then if you're stuck, you're bored. The woman wanted was ready to transition, like whether you're bored and whether or not you could look at another system, and like maybe you should look into something else if you're fulfilled in the system you're in. Mm-hmm. And you're going to move on, or you're ready to transition. Maybe there's just other things you could explore before you kick out, and that maybe your life is of value for others.
Oh, okay. That's it. All right. So this is something I've been thinking about recently.
Okay.
This may piss some people off.
Oh, hi.
But for real, though.
All right.
So I think that there are two types of people on the planet.
Oh, boy, I'm taking a drink of water.
I think that we have your main players.
Okay. She's going at her own pace. I have no control. Oh, go for it.
And then we have some NPCs. Okay. Okay. I'm going to throw this out there.
Okay.
We'll see if it sticks. So we've got your main players. Like spaghetti on the wall. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Sure. When you want to see if it's done, you throw it on the wall. If it sticks, it's done.
No wonder you have such a messy wall. Okay, keep going.
Anywho, so actually my walls are very clean.
I know.
Listen, for real. We got two types of people on the planet. We've got main players and NPCs. Our main players,
Neo and batteries,
are those that are, waking up to reality. The main players are the ones that are taking control of their reality, that realize they create their own reality. They can manifest whatever they want. They can grab whatever they want out of the ether. Like we've got our main players who see what's happening and they're like, hey, I'm on the main stage. I'm in control. I got this. But then you've got your NPCs. Your NPCs, well, we all know what they are.
Okay.
But maybe, so when you say people, this is the point that I'm getting to. When you say when you start thinking about what's your purpose and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question has been what about people who never wake up? Or people who actually have an awakening experience and then go right back to sleep? But people who never wake up, who never see what's happening, who never question, seek, who are never curious. Okay. So my theory is that they're just props. This is real tacky. I'm going to say it. They're just props for your life.
Okay.
If you're a main player,
actor on your stage,
they're just
the tree.
They're just a backup.
Okay.
On your stage.
They're filler.
They're serving a purpose in your evolution. And maybe it's not because they're unintelligent. Maybe it's because they have chosen to take this lifetime off. Maybe they have said, hey, I need a break. I don't really feel like evolving and learning. It's kind of like if time is an illusion and it doesn't actually exist, and this is over like that, right? Then how would somebody's NPC experience here on the planet not be just like an ethereal day at the beach?
Okay, so here's a possibility. So if we go a little matrixy here, one, you could argue that they're just people who are batteries, right? But they're living in an existence in their own mind. In this case, if there are people on the planet who are in quotes waking up, now we have the idea quantumly we've proven the existence of the collective consciousness, right? So let's just say that if genetically, let's just say the junk genes are also genetic memories, or literally stored souls stored? What if the fragmented hard drive of us in our cellular system is that of many different people, many different things? But what if collectively the energy for the collective ether of consciousness is not a random bit of ether outside of organic? What if the portion that we call collective consciousness is not originated from something up there? What if in the beginning evolutions of our organic existence, what if we created the portion of the ether that holds our consciousness?
How was there a beginning? If time doesn't exist, then there would be no beginning and no end.
No, I'm saying that when humans
on this planet,
wherever they are, this dimension, what if the experience of whatever, if there was a beginning, or chicken before the egg, if there was a first human, well, look at it this way then. Either there was a first couple of humans and we were test tubes or something else. We were created by another species that no longer exists or is here. Like we were seeded. Maybe we started with 100. Maybe we started with 1,000. Maybe they gestated, again, chicken before the egg. Well, it's simple. You program it. You make it happen, right? But what if the same thing is true about us? So let's just say we started with less. But what if there was no collective consciousness before we existed? So the power that this individual, this NPC, or however you want to put it, who isn't contributing to expanding conscious human consciousness, nor are they contributing to unconscious consciousness, but what if they themselves, with their minds, with their spirit, is used or not, what if they are part of that collective power plant, and at a minimum, they're not creating static or being a discharged crappy battery? What if it is still a positive contribution that others who are conscious can specifically download information from their unconscious mind?
Or what if their contribution to the planet is their way to help you evolve may come across as a negative thing, but isn't?
Yeah, maybe, you're talking about fate, maybe, or no?
Well, no, I'm just saying that maybe the interactions that we have on the planet with other humans, and we deem them as negative interactions, whether it's relationships or just, interactions in the grocery store or whatever.
Okay.
Maybe they're actually just NPCs planted in our lives to help us evolve, like to push us along the way. They don't have any sort of, there's not really, it's not, I don't think that they have like I don't think that they're disconnected from the ether. So you're saying like at the beginning of the ether, this was there. I think that maybe they just took a lifetime off. Like maybe they just said, I think this time I'm going to help so-and-so. Or maybe because, just think about it. It's like the older you get, the faster time goes, right?
Okay.
And so if time is an illusion and everything's over like that,
okay,
where we look back and we just think, oh my God, that was like, what a dream that was, right? Okay, so if that's the case and everything's over like that, then what would be the harm? If we're in the same soul group, you and I, if we're in the same soul group, and just like we are in life, okay, so let's just say we're best friends and business partners in life. I want to see you succeed. I want to see you do well, right? I'm willing to help you do that. I want to see that. I care about you and I want to see you do well. So I want to help you. So what if in the afterlife or the outer life, whatever we want to call it, what if outside of this life, what if I said to you, like, what if we're in the same soul group and you want to have a specific evolutionary experience? And I say to you, okay, well, in order, we're just brainstorming on the other side. And in order for you to get to this point, it's like, okay, well, this time in this life, I'll do this. I'll play this part in order to help you get here. Do you think that's possible?
It's possible, but I think that there's the but is that what we all, I think, are, like, we don't even address it. We all look at ourselves as, no matter what state, we're still our individual selves, right? We don't look at ourselves as we would just dissipate into a collective. we all have this, and I think it's a truth. I think it's something we all know instinctively. We don't know why, but I do think that we are individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we are singularly devout to just this, or created for just one life.
But do you really though? Like when you are really, really close to another person, do you not experience the feeling of oneness?
That's what I'm saying, is that I think that there's a reason there's male and female. I think there's a reason that we complement.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a way that I think the only way for us to feel whole, like actually whole, is our collective, like the more we create together, I think there's more tuning, more harmony, more clarity, more amplified experience. I think that there's
where there are three or more.
Now that's a connection to God. But I think what that's about is about creating things out of, and I think two can do it, but I think that the idea of, and by the way, they may have just taken the two and jumped into the three to make a point about God. But the reality is it might be about different consciousness systems, that we're able to do different things mechanically within the ether when you have more brain power, when you take an individual group. But however, I think there's a reason there's a yin and yang. There's a reason there's this duality of the complementary of the two, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that our power is limitless as marriage is coupling or connecting is not supposed to be about mechanical, have kids, procreate, blah, blah, blah. It's not, you make kids and all that, and families, great, which is good, really good. But on the higher level, I think the idea of, there's a reason so many couples that are really, really connected, like that. How many times you got couples that literally, like, one dies, the other one dies within seconds.
Mm-hmm. In The Notebook.
There's a tethering there.
Have you seen The Notebook?
It's been a while.
You haven't seen it.
Maybe I've not seen the whole thing.
Oh my God, you haven't seen The Notebook.
Not the whole thing.
You don't even know what I'm talking about.
I know it's sad.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
I look, I'm already a romantic, so it's like I don't know if I want to be that sad.
It's coming.
Oh,
we're gonna watch The Notebook.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So
movie night Friday night. Watching The Notebook.
As long as you promise that we get to watch something cool afterwards, like some sort of cool documentary,
like Star Wars.
No, like
cool, Interstellar. No. Okay. Oh, documentary.
Or Interstellar. I haven't seen that in a while.
Inception.
Meh. No,
because it has DiCaprio in it.
No, I like DiCaprio. It's just that it's Inception, so it's like it's a dream. It's like, oh, everybody
it's a dream
stop.
And a dream and a dream
just
and a dream.
Stop. Everybody stop. Everybody just make another movie.
Everybody stop.
Everybody stop. So collaborate and listen.
Ice is back with a brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me. I could go every word.
Yeah. So there we go.
Will it ever stop? No.
She doesn't know. I think. Yeah. So yeah, I think that there is a possibility that if the more we explore. So on one hand, it's like people harmonize, right? But I think everybody in this life experience, they stop at certain points, or they don't. Mm-hmm. And not that it's a race or competition. I just think that there is, like, depending on your curiosity and your drive, it's like you want to try more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's been rare that even people connect, that they even get these connections.
Yeah.
But then then there's a choice. You get to, and then again, I think the universe intervenes and keeps like, okay, here's the tools you need in order to do the following amplifications. You don't even know what you get to do, but here's all the toys. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, do you pick it up and try and do it? And then
if you're even cognizant that the universe has handed you those. Mm-hmm. And then so many people miss just that piece.
Right. And then you're like, well, I got some pieces, but should I? And then the universe is like, here's 57,000 signs. I've given you all the right crap.
God, I'm the worst.
Now, would you just do it? It's like, well, no, I think I know better.
Do you though?
Do you?
And then the universe shakes its head. And it's like, okay, dumbass,
like,
you just keep doing you.
I'm endless and I could keep giving you opportunities, but I've already given you an endless amount, which you've done nothing with, and you don't pick up. So it's like, tell you what, you pick up anything that I've given you, call me back. Or like just knock on my door. Just pick up the things, harmonize a little bit, and you'll have my immediate attention. Until
That's
then,
it.
until then,
Oh,
you've been given everything.
that was beautiful.
You like that?
Yeah, let's say that again.
So I've given you so many green lights, and I've given you so many tools, and I've given you so many insights and so many things that all you have to do now is harmonize and go
Yeah.
forward.
And then you have my full attention.
And you have my full attention. But until then,
I love it.
I can't do anything more with you. It's like, so if you think you got it, great, you got it. And as I go out into the infinity, I'll look at the other things you think of, which great. But I'm the infinite universe going, I'm pretty sure you could do the following. And you know what? I'm going to gift you with this. I'm going to gift you with that. And if you're not sure, well, guess what? You know what? Here are 57 pre-flight checklist things that you should use in case you're wondering if you're on the right track. Okay. You're gonna think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I will be here faster than you can finish the thought.
Oh my gosh. It's beautiful. That's so beautiful. I love it. It makes me just love the universe so much. So, for those of you that are wondering if you can love God or not, yes, you can, because I do. Listen, the universe is God. God is the universe. It's all the same thing. And I love God, and God is awesome. And listen, what you just said, that was beautiful. That's a beautiful way to put it. Like, here it is. I'm giving you all of the things.
You know, and I'm not, as for everything we've just said about every piece of religion has a piece, right? So
that's so good.
So thank you. So
I should write that down.
Well, and so I was totally unrelated, but kind of, again, it's like things I don't normally look at, right? So I'm curating some things on our Facebook, and there's a thing that said something about it's Ecclesiastes. It was about how when indicators about like coupling or getting together.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that the quote was basically that God will clear the people that you're already with out of the way to prepare you
for the good ones.
For the good ones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, interesting, because that's not something I search or look for or anything else.
Yeah.
And it's showing up. But that was right before a picture of how our solar system spins. I'm like, ooh. And I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, interesting. Huh. Okay. And then I just kept going. But I think the adjacency of when you are living closer to how you've been maybe preemptively designed.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're all great islands, but we're not designed. We're designed to be complementary. We're designed. And so there you go. It's like what, and then if you're not awake, if you're just doing if you're not open-minded to not just the age, or if you want to be more conscious, it's like, there's one thing for you to do it individually, but then to not make it a slippery slope of just being complacent together. I think the idea of partnering is that you're not only able to amplify and make some things easier, but it makes things more complex. And therefore, if you're kind of, if the universe can see it or knows it, or knows what it kind of puts, it's almost like it's playing with a big puzzle and putting it back together. And it can see when two pieces go together. And then it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to get in the puzzle, I guess just sit out of the frame over there. I'm going to work on the blue color.
But it knows eventually you'll join the puzzle.
Yeah.
I feel like eventually the universe is like, I mean, if you think about it, if we have gut feelings and knowings and we're just like, we know this is going to happen, don't think that the universe doesn't, right? The universe knows if we're going to do things. And so when the universe throws things at us, it's like, I know you're probably not going to grab this, but here it is just in case. You know what I mean?
You can sit out of the puzzle, but eventually you two go here.
Eventually, you're going to get there.
You're going to get in.
You're going to get there. So we'll just be patient and see what happens.
And it's interesting because the picture of what it is when it's done, I mean, that there's all different analogies. But again, you're alive and you're conscious and you have feelings, and the universe knows that. So it's like, well, here's some encouragement. Here's some ideas. If you're looking for another green light, okay. There's just a green star that looks like
Well, and I think the more in tune you are too with yourself and the universe, when you're looking for the signs, when you are actively paying attention and aware that the universe does do that and
Yeah.
bring you signs and omens, and you actually start paying attention to those, it does save you so much. I
Yeah.
almost asked a question just this weekend to a person. I almost asked a question, and there was an obvious sign from the universe right when I took that next breath to ask that question, an obvious sign from the universe, and I immediately stopped before the next word came out of my mouth. And the next word that came out of my mouth was, "That's an omen." That's what I did.
Really?
I said, "That's an omen."
Mm.
And then I looked at this person and I said, "The universe does not want me to ask you that question." And I walked away. And then later got some information. And I was really, really grateful that I did not follow through with that question, because it would have made me feel really stupid later. So in hindsight, I'm paying much more attention to the universal signs now, because the universe saved my ass like 3 days ago from feeling really stupid. And so I am
in some future
I'm
episode,
there.
In some future episode, maybe we'll get into it, like why you just said that. We can leave it cryptically now, but it might be a good story for someday.
Yeah, maybe someday. Not today, but maybe someday, because, conveniently, we're out of time.
And we didn't go through half of the news.
I know. You said that was going to happen, though. This is why we get into it so fast. We get into it so fast because there's so many things we're prepared to talk about, and we don't get to a quarter of them.
Okay, so to throw it out to everyone, one, we should specifically have a news day, or maybe we just try to hyper focus on the news and what we think of it and just focus on it. And then some days we do this, maybe. And then, maybe I don't know. What do you think? Just actually focus?
Just be flexy. We'll see.
Okay. We're going to be flexy. All right. Then we are going to go to Belize at the end of July. That's on the website on rqx.com. Check it out. Please join us. You can sign up. Is there anything else we should go over before we go?
I don't think so. We have Belize coming up at the end of July, and then Egypt in November. If you're interested, details on the website. If you have any questions, shoot us a message and let us know. Until next time, we are out.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.